Alright, hello and welcome back to another deck profile. Today, we finally get to take a look at Rank 2 Invoked, which is something I've been waiting to do for a while until we got enough Rank 2s to really make it viable, because I'll put a card up to it before if you haven't seen it, but I actually did a Rank 4 Invoked deck profile, which was my favorite way to play the deck. And this is basically like the spiritual successor to that because it works in the same way, and it actually can go off very well, and you'll be making Bora loads and things like that pretty damn often. The extra deck is liable to change. We actually just got some new generic Link 2s announced, which just take 2 monsters and have downwards diagonal arrows. But I don't have those in here just because, they were just announced, right before I started this, basically. But the extra deck is basically liable to change to whatever good, Link monsters we get throughout this, new Reigns era. But that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Obviously, we have 3 copies of Alistair. You normal summon him, grab Invocation. He's a pseudo-honest kind of thing. Obviously, you want to be seeing him. We do run Brilliant Fusion and Seraphinite, so we can double summon him. He's not once per turn, so we can grab multiple copies of the Fusion, and that can get pretty insane. We run 1 copy of Blue Boy. Yes, his name isn't Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, it's Blue Boy, goddammit. And we run 1 copy of him for the little Spellbook engine of 2 secrets to knowledge. Yes, 2 secrets to knowledge and him. He's also a water for our Water Fusion. And getting on to the, what used to be Rank 4 stuff that is now actually just, generic Link fodder cards. We have 3 copies of Photon Thrasher. You obviously want to run 3 because you want to open him, and then just go ahead, special him. He's a free monster on the board, and a light target for Mechaba. He also can just, be some discard fodder later in the game for Mechabas if you get to later in the game and don't kill your opponent, because we OTK a lot. 1 copy of Fairy Tale Snow as a target for Brilliant Fusion if we open one of our 2 copies of Trick Clown. Now, I run 2 copies of Trick Clown because having him in hand actually isn't that bad. He makes all of our Gigabytes and Gigabyte copies live, and obviously bring himself back, so that's a free Link 3 right there, just off of those 2 cards. And also you can ditch him from hand off of Invocation to actually special him back. And then if you have, your another normal summon still off of Seraphinite, you can normal summon, making the Link from there. So things, having him in hand actually isn't that bad, so we actually run 2 copies of him. And of course, we run the 1 copy of Garnet for our Brilliant Fusion. Moving on to the free special summons, we have 2 copies of Gigabyte, 2 copies of Nefarious Archfiend, Eater of Nefariousness, and 2 copies of Inari Fire. Now we do 2 of each because they're obviously all different attributes, so we have access to Fire, Earth, and Water and all these monsters. They all special summon themselves if you control a spellcaster, and you can only control 1 of each at a time. If Gigabyte is destroyed by battle card effect sent to the grave, you can special either of these 2. If Inari Fire is destroyed by a card effect, you can special him back during the standby phase, and during your end phase, if Nefarious Archfiend is in the graveyard, you can destroy 1 monster you control to special summon it back to the field. So they all work in tandem, but there aren't many times you'll actually be resolving those effects. For more crazy plays, we have 2 copies of Orpheus Scorpio, 1 copy of Darling Todia Cobra, and 1 copy of Lone Fire. Now, you might be wondering about the ratios there, but a lot of the times, Orpheus Scorpio is just strike fodder. You're going to null summon him, he's going to get hit by a strike, and, that's it. Your play is ending there. I'm running the 1 copy of Lone Fire because if you're running, say 2 copies of Lone Fire, 1 copy of him, you can only try to resolve it once. Whereas running 2 copies of him, if one gets striked or stopped, we can still try to resolve it again if we have another one in hand or something like that. So instead of just running 3 of him, I run the 1 copy of Lone Fire because Lone Fire is a better attribute for the deck in Fire, giving us more access to our Fire Fusion. But obviously, Predaplan Orpheus Scorpio, if you go through the whole Predaplan combo, the Link format one, you end with the, Mrs. Radian, the Seraphinite, the Trick Clown, and the Heroic Challenge 1000 Blades, so that's an easy Bora load right there. So that's obviously very insane for the deck, and rounding things off, like we were just saying, we have the 1 copy of 1000 Blades. Moving on to the spells, we run 2 copies of Invocation, just the standard ratio there. Why is this way? That's backwards. And we run 3 copies of Magical Meltdown, 2 copies of Terraforming. Most people will run 3 copies of Terraforming. I've never liked doing 3 Terraforming, 3 Field Spell. I've always been a 3 terraforming, 2 field spell kind of person, and this is still 8 ways to get to Alistair. A lot of times you will see multiple copies of him in hand anyway, through terraforming's meltdowns and himself, and just hard drawing the invocation, so I don't think 3 is necessary, but you still want to make sure you see it, so I'm liking the 2 ratio. Oh god, it's all uneven. Now it's even. Hey. 1 copy of Upstart just for that little bit of extra consistency, and the rest of the spellbook cards, 2 secrets and 2 knowledge. Obviously just the standard ratio there, and then 3 copies of Brilliant Fusion and 3 copies of Instant Fusion, both which are searchable off of the Orpheus Scorpio, so if you open one you can search the other. And Instant Fusion is just for a 3000 eyes, because he can just be used as free link fodder, and an out or a bait for some of your opponent's cards for the cost of 1000 life points. Moving on to the extra deck, we only run 1 XYZ, which is MX Saber Invoker. I would like to fit a Castell in here, but extra deck space is super, super tight in this deck. It's insanely tight. Like, there's not many things I'd want to cut. Yeah, it's very tight. So MX Saber Invoker is our only XYZ. For our fusions, the only ones we aren't running are Ragin. Sadly, we're not running Ragin just because there's no wind of these guys, or really good spammable wind monster. And Caliga, because Caliga is just not good anymore. He wasn't even good before, he's even worse now that it's link format. But Mechaba is the most important, and we have the most targets for that. So we're running 2 copies of Mechaba, 1 copy of Potato, 1 copy of Purgatrio, and 1 copy of Cocytus. They all come up, but Mechaba comes up the most, which is why we're doubling down on him. And obviously we have the Seraphonite and the Thousand Eyes. For our links, we have 1 copy of Borlo Dragon as our link 4. I like him a lot better than Firewall. With Firewall, we might be able to resolve his effect once, but I'd rather, have Borload, which is a safe play. He can sit on the field, he can take something, you can link with what you take, and I just generally like him better than Firewall and think he's the best link 4 in the game right now. For our 3s, we have Ningirsu in Decode Talker. Now, with one of the combos in the deck, we will be going into Decode Talker more than Ningirsu, but I always want to have him as an option because he's a very strong card. And I don't want to cut him just in case, even though we go into Unless, when he comes up, he's super important. For our Link 2s, we have Mrs. Radiant, Proxy Dragon, Code Talker, and Security Dragon. Now, links like this is really what makes the deck function, because we can go ahead, link 2 into one of these monsters that opens up another space on our board, and then go ahead, make a fusion from there. Say we ditch a Trick Clown, the Trick Clown comes back, normal Alistair again, link into, Borlo Dragon from there. And these are the starting pieces to help you go off. And obviously once we get better Link 2s, like the ones I talked about at the beginning, those could replace these, although using these 2, you can actually resolve a combo that will get you 1 bounce off of Security Dragon before you go off, which just makes it even easier to kill your opponent right there. Alright, that mass of me rambling on out of the way, let's go ahead and watch some replays of it in action here. Okay, in this one, we're up against Crawlers, and he's basically just going to open Man-Eater Bug and back to the front. So it's nothing special, but it does show off the OTK potential of the deck, and one of our, the basically like Security Dragon combo of the deck. I didn't plan any combos out. It's one of those decks that's just kind of, as you're going along, the steps kind of progress pretty linearly in front of you, so it's not something you have to, really learn. It's just some basic resource management, some basic things like that. So we'll go ahead and roll it here. He'll grab 2 copies of the field spell, but it doesn't do anything super relevant to us. And he'll just set up with a Man-Eater Bug there, which, you better believe we're playing around Man-Eater Bug as well. So as you can see, one small note here is, normally I would like to normal summon Alistair first, just to draw out any baits or anything, especially having an invocation in hand. But with Link format, you actually have to use Seraphonite's extra normal summon first, so that you can then link with the Seraphonite and the Alistair, because those both have to be engraved, so you can actually bring anything out. So that's one small thing to note there, is that actually has to be done first now. But anyway, just continuing on from there, so we'll normal summon the Alistair, grab our second invocation, go into the Security Dragon, go into the Code Talker, and we can go ahead and bounce one from there. And then go into Decode Talker, have 2 zones open, have a 3300 on board, along with presumably 2 fusions and an extra link or something like that. Extra link monster, not an extra link. So we'll go ahead and make the Mechaba. We'll go ahead, add Alistair back to hand. Notice that since we already have the Invocation in hand, there's no point in normal summoning him again, because we can't make any link plays or anything, because I don't want to give up the Mechaba, obviously. So we'll just go ahead and null some Blue Boy to grab another Spellbook card. And we'll go ahead and keep one for next turn just in case. And then one more small note on the deck. If you're going to make 2 fusions in a turn, always discard the Alistair to bump one of your fusions up so that he still gets banished, so you can still add him back next turn. That's just a small thing that I don't see some people doing. You always want to make sure you have one for next turn, so just discard him so he gets banished, and you can resolve Invocation's add back next turn. And just in case of a Mirror Force here, we're going to go into the Water Fusion, and then go ahead and swing for a little bit over game here. So as you can see, the deck can kill pretty damn quickly. In this one, we're up against your Senjus. This one's actually going to be some very insane pop-off, though, so this is one I definitely want to showcase here. He'll go ahead and set up with, I believe it's basically just going to be the Osenju's secret move here. He's not even going to set the Twin Twisters, which is an interesting play. But we'll just basically, there's really not much need to commentate this, it's just some pop-off here. So we actually, one little note, we resolve the Brilliant Fusion first because I'd rather have the Brilliant Fusion hit with an Ash Blossom or something like that than our Field Spell, because without Alistair, we're not doing as much, we're not really doing what the deck's supposed to do. So I'd rather see Alistair than the Brilliant Fusion, actually. So we'll go ahead and do that first, and then go ahead and do our Alistair shenanigans. And as you can see, we just get so many free monsters on the board, it's insanity. And you can see we're just adding Alistair back, normal summoning him again, grabbing Invocation again. And he's actually going to scoop up here. What I was actually going to do is turn the Proxy Dragon and the Code Talker into an Ingirsu to send the Brilliant Fusion in his face down, just in case it was a Mirror Force or something, obviously knowing I'm up against your Senjus, and then push for a game there. So that wasn't even our complete play. But as you can see, you can it just pops off so brilliantly. But I really love it. For this one, we're actually up against a mirror match here. Don't agree with the Twin Twisters, but I do agree with the Scapegoat. He opened both Invocation, but he still has a way to Alistair. So he's not going to be doing anything turn 1, but oh, he's got the buddies ready to go, and you better believe it. And down here we open the Garnet, but we still have a pretty decent hand besides that. So let's go ahead and roll this one. Obviously, he'll Terraform and get to Alistair. He'll normal summon that. No search because he has both in hand, but he will set up with the Scapegoat. He's going to go ahead and Twin Twister our Magical Meltdown there. But we do have one ready for next turn, so I'm not super scared. Now, instead of going into a link play, we're going to go ahead and use our knowledge there to draw more cards, which actually doesn't advance us too much, but instead of drawing those next turn, we'll just get more cards on our deck, more of a chance of drawing better cards later, even if our draws weren't that good. He's going to go ahead. His play is interesting here. I haven't analyzed enough to know if it's super optimal. But he does go into Firewall, obviously make Mechaba and the Potato, so it's good, but I feel like there's something that could have been done better there. I feel like the Firewall was a bit unnecessary. You can see we resolve Gigabyte's effect there, and he outed our board, but we're ready to go off here. We'll bait the Mechaba with one Meltdown, and because it negates activation, we can go ahead and activate it once again. And we're just going to go ahead and make Purgatrio and actually swing over everything there. And then main phase 2 will make a Mechaba just to negate any monster effects he might have. And he'll go ahead scoop up drawing a Twin Twister. But Purgatrio is insanity, especially with Alistair. At minimum a 3300 that can swing over everything your opponent controls is actually insane. So again, just you want to have every fusion in there that we can summon, because they do all come up and they do all have times where they are relevant. In this one, we're up against Metal Foes. Again, this is another one I haven't really analyzed his play super in depth to see if he's doing everything optimally. He will be making the new Pendulum monster a lot, and not much more than that. I'm not sure what new Metal Foes really do, but Metal Foes is still decent, especially with the new Pendulum monster. And he obviously has the Mind Over Matter here for free negate, so we'll go ahead and roll it here. Now he'll open up with, his hand isn't super great, obviously. He has the Luster, but all he really has is copies of Volflame, making that other summoners are dead. We'll go ahead and get a Gold Driver to hand here, so you can resolve the Mind Over Matter. Now we'll resolve Brilliant Fusion first, just to get cards out of our deck before we upstart, and because we have to now. The combination chain really doesn't do much. Obviously we'll go ahead and upstart then. Normal summon Alistar, and that's going to get hit with the Mind Over Matter. So we're just going to go ahead and make the Decode Talker and pass there. We could have done more, but I'd rather leave the cards in my hand for next turn than, put something on board that might just get outed on his turn. So you can see he's going to open those. He's going to go ahead. Because he was going to make Castel. I was wondering why he didn't pop the Ariadne. But he goes ahead and outs our Decode Talker, and he sets up with, Thousand Blades off after that, obviously. He'll set up with double counter and combination, but it actually doesn't matter because we have access to Purgatrio, which is basically the Metalfoes killer. So we'll go ahead and just Security Dragon from there. As you can see, we ditched the Trick Clown from hand, so we can special that back, and we can use that to go into a Decode Talker or something higher up. As you can see, we can actually go into a Borload here, ditch to Fuse, and go ahead and actually make Purgatrio, Mechabot, and Borload. Then he'll chain counter and keep bringing stuff out, but it doesn't matter. Putting that out was just stupid. But he'll keep putting stuff out. We can keep swinging over it with Purgatrio, so we just burn through all of his resources and swing for game there. Just more showcasing of Purgatrio being insane, basically. But I mean, we made a pretty decent board. Like, this is something that happens a lot in this deck, is actually making a Borload into fusions, and that obviously gives you an opponent's monster as well. So this deck does have some fairly strong plays. But anyway, that will do it for a look at Link to Invoked, a spiritual successor to rank 4 Invoked. I really like saying that phrase, if you haven't noticed. But again, it's not super optimal because we don't have, the best of the Link 2s that we're going to see yet. Obviously, we're still in the infancy of the mechanic, but we're getting there. So I figured I'd go ahead and get this out because really the only thing that has to change is the extra deck. So you guys can just go ahead and, shape this to however, the format demands or whatever links we get. Things of that nature, because it is very adaptable. It can play through some negates here and there. It can put up pretty massive boards and kill your opponent pretty quickly. And if not, you have a Mechaba to sit on. We don't play into back row, but if you play things right, the one Mechaba can put some work in. But anyway, I'll stop there before I ramble on about this deck forever, because I do love this deck. But anyway, I'll have a link to my Discord down in the description. Cool place to chill, hang out, talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, among other things. And I'll have a link to my Patreon as well. Now, supporting me on there will get you extra duels that don't make it into these videos, because I do have a lot of replays. I record them all. I only put, 3 or 4 into the videos, and the rest will go up on Patreon for supporters there. But don't worry, none of the usual content will ever be gated off or anything. This is just extra stuff that you guys weren't, that wasn't making it anyway, so might as well put it to some use. And that's for anyone who supports with any amount on Patreon there. But no pressure to support you. Again, no usual content or anything will be gated off. I want you guys to all get everything. Just watching is enough. But if you have a little extra to give, it would be greatly appreciated. But, understand if you can't. All the stuff. I'm rambling. I'm trying to make this sound better, and I'm just making it sound worse. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.